The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Loss in our lives takes on many different forms and can be more than just a physical loss. It goes beyond that to include emotional loss, business loss, and loss of personal health. This is Voices for Healing with Cathy Roberts. Today, Cathy and her guests will help you find out that you are not alone in dealing with loss and grief. There are so many different ways to deal with loss. What works for some may not work for others. Together, let's find the solution that you can use. Here's your host, Cathy Roberts.
Welcome, listeners and guests, to Voices for Healing Talk Radio, dedicated to helping you learn skills and practices to heal loss and come more alive. I am your host, professional counselor and educator, Cathy Roberts. You can learn more about me on my website, which is cathyroberts.net. From there, you can connect with me on social media, including Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, and iTunes. In addition to the information you get by listening to this radio program, I am available for consultation in my office in the Washington, D.C. area. Today, my guests are Edie Elkin and Olivia McNish-McMillan. In the first half of the hour, Edie will talk about her work using and teaching the musical harp for healing self and in service to others. In the second half of the show, Olivia will inform us on how we can use essential oils to heal loss and depression. Welcome to Edie and Olivia. I'm grateful you're both with us this morning.
Thank you, Cathy. Thank you for having me.
And Olivia's listening in at this point. Let me introduce you first to Edie. Musician Edie Elkin founded Bedside Harp, a company dedicated to promoting the therapeutic use of the harp in healthcare in 2002. Edie and her colleagues have offered over 73,000 patients harp therapy sessions and taught over 700 adults how to play the harp for their own healing and enjoyment. Edie began practicing meditation over 10 years ago and incorporates mindfulness in all of her teaching. She teaches harp therapy, and mindfulness-based stress reduction at 6 college and hospital locations in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Just hang in with me for a second here. I need to make a technical adjustment. Thank you. I wanted all of my attention to go to you as we start to talk, Edie, and I had a momentary distraction. In the next 30 minutes, we'll take a look at how music heals and learn about Edie's work with harp and healing. Edie, in our conversations before the show, you let me know you're a lifelong musician, and I'm really interested in when and how you became interested in the power of music to heal.
Well, Cathy, it actually began when I was very young, but I didn't realize that I was using music to heal back then. It took, unfortunately, the death of 3 people in my life within 8 months of each other for me to really understand that the moment is all that we have, and that it was time for me to go back to playing the harp. I had played the harp in high school, and it got me through the terrible teens, not realizing that that was the single most reason that I got through so well. And I had not played for about 28 years. And it was the third death, after the third death, when I went to a grief counselor. And at the end of the session, when she asked me, "What can you do to put joy back into your life?" And no sooner had I left her office when I realized I had to return to playing the harp. I thought it was to reclaim a lost dream of, long ago. And I didn't find out until much later that there are very definite healing qualities to playing the harp that I don't think any other instrument offers you.
I'd love to hear about that. What are those healing qualities that you find so significant in the harp, with the harp?
Right. Well, for the first thing, it's, you hold the harp against your chest to your heart. We're about 90% water. So, of course, the vibrations from every string that you pluck goes right through you, kind of rearranging things as that happens. So it's the way you hold the harp, too, which is cradling it. And I think it's especially important for people who have undergone loss to cradle something, to feel that they are holding on to something. The other part of it is that you pluck the strings with your bare finger. Unlike the piano, when you touch a key and that releases the damper and the hammer then strikes the strings inside the piano, here you are intimately plucking each string with your bare finger, and this does become a much more intimate experience with creating the sound. And two, David in the Bible is actually reported to have been the first harp therapist, as it would be, when he played the harp for King Saul, when Saul would get into his mood states, his black mood states, and later when David became king, is reported to have played for himself to comfort and soothe him. So there are a lot of parts of playing the harp that really seem to heal in a very intimate, very direct way.
As you were describing that, I was thinking how each of the strings on the harp has a slightly different vibration, and as you're holding that by your heart, each of those vibrations is entering into you, and there's just something very lovely about that.
Yes, and two, again, unlike the piano, when you lift your finger from the piano key, the sound ceases. But when you pluck the string, that vibration continues even after you've left that string and are playing other strings. So there is a ringing quality to the instrument, much like a singing bowl, for instance, that keeps on giving you healing vibrations.
Yeah, I was thinking of the singing bowl image as well as you were talking about the vibrations, the tones continuing even after you've stopped playing. What can you tell us about research that supports music for healing, particularly harp music, if you have some of that in particular?
Right. Well, I would go first to talk about Herbert Benson's work at Harvard Medical School's Mind-Body Institute in Boston. Back in the 60s, Herbert Benson, a cardiologist and surgeon, noticed that certain of his patients healed faster and with less complications than others. And he was a young surgeon at the time and had a lot at his fingertips to be able to actually study this in a formal research projects. And what he found was that those who regularly meditated and or prayed every day, at least 20 minutes, between 11 and 18 minutes, actually, he figured, actually healed better. And he called this the relaxation response and wrote his seminal work, and that is the title of it, the relaxation response. And so I studied his work because I knew that when we enter a space and we play for a patient or even someone who is in a well state of being, that it seemed to me that instantly they would go into this space that Benson calls the relaxation response. You see, when the body is relaxed, it receives medication better. It receives healing. It goes into a healing mode better, which is why Benson believes that the relaxation response is an actual phenomena that occurs. So I've had the good fortune of studying with Dr. Benson, and I asked him that. I said, you say it takes 11 to 18 minutes for a person who is praying or meditating for people to go into this state of being. In my experience, it's instantaneous with practically the first pluck of my harp. And he smiled and said, "You're right. That does happen instantly when you are, playing music, that state is immediately achieved." And so I think that as much as, we try to explain what is it about, what we do, that is playing the harp, that creates this healing environment. I think, number one, it's the relaxation response. It immediately places the person into a different state of being. And we're very fortunate to have Dr. Benson's many, many years, over 40 years of research to make us realize, yes, this is a true thing that's happening. Most recently, we're partnered with 5 hospitals right now in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And at one of our hospitals, St. Joseph's Regional Medical Center in Paterson, New Jersey, they have a very unique situation. They have a geriatric emergency room. And we were invited to play in that emergency room for patients who are coming and going and so forth. And geriatric patients, statistically, unfortunately, seem to come to emergency rooms more frequently than other ages. And so Dr. Mark Rosenberg at that facility, the chief of the emergency department, brought in all kinds of wonderful therapies, including aromatherapy and harp therapy, to create this wonderful oasis for patients coming in, remembering that the patients are coming in, most of them are coming in by ambulance, which in itself is a very traumatic experience. And so he did this research project involving us and found out that an extraordinary number of patients and their loved ones, 90% reported that the harp music relaxed them. 91.8% said it calmed them. 80.3% said it really helped them be less anxious. And the majority of them responded that music was valuable to them and they would recommend music to someone in the situation. And so the music that we're talking about is harp music and live harp music. It doesn't work the same when it's recorded.
I was thinking about that because one of my thoughts as you were talking was, oh, wow, it's instantaneous calm. Why not get a CD or something? And I was going to ask, does recorded music have the same effect? And it doesn't quite, huh?
No, it wouldn't. For one thing, you have the live vibration, and that really does figure heavily into the mix of the healing mix. And the other part of it, which really can't be denied, is the presence of another being in the environment. And presence is really key, I think. And when you listen to music, it is a very passive experience. When there is a live person in front of you, looking at you, seeing what works for you musically, what may not work for you, adjusting and changing as you go along, very, very different experience.
Powerful image, and it's almost angelic as you describe that. I was thinking of there's Charlie's angels and there's also Edie's angels with their harps out there. Edie, we're going to need to take a break here, very short break. So we will go out and more with Edie Elkin coming up in just a few minutes. Stay with us, listeners.
Think you've seen everything there is to see in online television? Let us surprise you. Visit voiceamerica.tv today for sports, health, business, and more on demand 24/7.
Cathy Roberts is not only an exceptional radio host, she's an exceptional listener and counselor. Cathy appeals to motivated, high-functioning people to help them improve their health and vitality. Cathy can meet you where you are and help you identify what you want. Visit Cathy's website at www.cathyroberts.net or call her at 301-651-0019. Cathy works with both individuals and couples and specializes in grief and depression counseling. Get to know yourself by working with Cathy. Visit cathyroberts.net or call 301-651-0019. Cathy Roberts offers Circle of Voices teleclasses to help you focus your mind, engage your energy, and awaken your inner guide. Through this experiential and interactive series, you will know yourself more and learn to express yourself authentically in your personal life. Visit Cathy's website at cathyroberts.net to find out about this teleclass series, designed to open you to change and engage healing in the fabric of your life. Go to cathyroberts.net or call Cathy at 301-651-0019 for more information.
Now you don't have to stay linked to your desktop or laptop. Take Voice America on the go and listen anywhere. Get our mobile app for iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android at the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
You are listening to Voices for Healing with your host, Cathy Roberts. If you have a question or comment for the program, please send an email to Cathy at cathyroberts.net. That's Cathy at cathyroberts.net. Now back to Voices for Healing.
Welcome back to Voices for Healing. I'm Cathy Roberts, and I'm with Edie Elkin today, and we're discussing the power of music, specifically the musical harp, to heal. Edie, what events do you have coming up? What classes, events, and how can people reach you if they would like to after hearing you on the program?
Well, the easiest way would be just going to our website, www.bedsideharp.com. We're also on Facebook. And, people, we're a small, even though we have a lot of big numbers, we run a very close to the cuff operation. So people are welcome to call our offices, 215-752-7599. And the events that are coming up are our biggest event coming up this summer is being at Somerset Folk Harp Festival in Parsippany, New Jersey. I'll be offering 3 workshops there, and we will have a booth there as well. And if you want to look at a harp or harps, that's the place to go.
Sounds great. Thank you for letting people know how they can reach you. During the break, we were talking a little bit about harps, and is every harp useful in healing? And maybe you can tell us a little more so that people who want to learn more about this can make good choices.
Well, what matters in choosing any instrument for healing is the quality of the instrument and whether the tones are going to resonate within you or not. There are some harps that are made of plywood. Well, that's not going to resonate as beautifully as something made of real wood, of course. And so our harp maker, who is Dwight Blevins Harps in Colorado, actually developed a series of harps for us for our program called the Marie Harps. And he did that in accordance with my wish list. And number 1 on my wish list was a round, full sound that was not bright but mellow. And I needed to have mellow as opposed to bright, which you hear in a lot of Celtic music, which is wonderful, but it's not nearly as healing as as something that is mellow. So you want to be careful. You don't want to order a harp online without, hearing it, feeling it, seeing if this actually works for you.
Thanks for that. That will help a lot of people who might be listening to the show and want to explore this for themselves. What conditions or situations is the harp especially helpful in? You noted the geriatric population, and I wonder what other populations it's especially useful with, or what conditions.
Well, it's hard to tell you which situations the harp isn't appropriate for. We work in oncology units. Another formal study that we did way back in '03 was in the outpatient oncology unit. And, we saw that patients were receiving their medications, their chemotherapy in such relaxed states of being that we just knew that it had to have helped in their healing process. We play everywhere in the hospital, in ICU, I already mentioned the emergency room. There's no place that we don't play. We play for patients who are in, quote, non-responsive states of being. And we, being mindful and walking into the room and watching everything that there is to watch, we see differences. We see differences in the breathing rate of patients. We see furrowed brows begin to unfurrow. And so we know that the music is reaching them, even in their, comatose states of being. It's also wonderful. Hospitals are like little villages. People are married in hospitals. We play for those marriages. People celebrate birthdays. So we play for joyous occasions as well. And my very first paying job was at a dentist's office. And I sat in a common area that fed into all the treatment rooms, and people were getting out of their chairs and asking when I would be back because that's when they wanted to make their appointment.
Oh, how lovely. I just think how wonderful it will be when this becomes more common around the country.
Well, we're doing our best to do our part in it. Our program is a very rigorous 2-year program. It requires a harp therapist in training to do as much self-healing in order to really be able to go out and heal others. You have to fill your own cup before you can, do that for other people.
Absolutely true. Do you have some more anecdotal stories from your students or patients that you can share with us about what you or they have experienced in doing this work?
Well, there's not a day that I go out or that our students and professionals go out that something wonderful happens. And what may be wonderful to us may not seem that much to someone else, and unless you really understand the scenario. One of the hospitals that I went to, the first day that I was there, the administrators were shadowing me because they wanted to see what could a little harp in healthcare do. And they took me to their unit in the hospital where people were respirator dependent. That means that they could not breathe on their own. And I walked we stroll through our hospitals. We don't know the diagnoses. We don't know prognoses of any of the patients. We just walk through the halls, look into the rooms, and look for some sign of someone wanting us in the room. We are definitely, so protective of their vulnerable states of being and their need for privacy. So one of the doors was opened, and I looked in and smiled, and there was a wife who was sitting opposite her husband. Her husband was propped up on a chair. He was respirator dependent, and the two of them looked very sad. And so she invited me in, and I came in and smiled, and we don't speak as much as we speak through our music. And I got the sense after being there for just a few minutes that it might be a nice thing for me to play Over the Rainbow. So I began playing Over the Rainbow, and very slowly and very open, with a lot of open spaces, enough that the people would understand, what song it was, but also spaces for healing. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw the wife jump up and run out of the room. And of course I thought, oh my, what did I do? But I continued to play. And the patient was smiling broadly, and we had this wonderful interaction. When I left the room, I found out from the administrators who were observing in the hallway that the wife had said to them, "This is a miracle. He hasn't smiled in the 7 weeks he's been in this hospital. This was his first smile." So, how do you measure that? If you're trying to quantify something in a research project, it was huge, and yet it's not something that you can actually put a number to. But it was huge, and certainly it was a moment that I'll never forget.
Part of what I liked about that story is your inner listening. You came up with playing Over the Rainbow. It sounds like you just listened to something inside of you said to play that.
Yes, and that's pretty much, that's why it's important to work on your own stuff, to be open enough to be able to receive what you need to receive. In another situation at another hospital, I got off the elevator, it was an oncology unit, and something, motivated me to play Edelweiss. Now, I have a repertoire of many hundreds of songs. Why I chose to play that song, I can't tell you. But there it was, and it started coming out. And at the end of the hallway, a visitor was gesticulating, asking me to come into the room. It turned out that her sister was the patient. She was an oncology patient. And the two of them told me that this song had such great meaning to them. They knew it in German, and together they sang Edelweiss as I played it. I can't explain why I chose to play that song that moment, but there it was, and they had a moment between them that they shared that, again, I don't think either one will forget.
Beautiful story. I think about one of the things that we talk about on this show from time to time is how we're all connected in some kind of way that we can't see and sometimes we're not even aware of. Mm-hmm. And yet when we do, as you said, when we are able to do our own work and clear ourselves out enough that we can allow incoming what might need to come in a given moment. And I think that can happen through the practice of the meditation and the mindfulness that you are very big on, I know. It opens us up to being able to both receive from wherever we might be receiving from and give as well.
Indeed. So we are all wounded healers, and we need to understand that we need to tend to our own wounds as much as we, if we want to do this work, because otherwise we will feel depleted, we will feel wrung out, we will just not have the healing encounters that are possible.
That's absolutely true, and I'm glad you're underlining that and sharing that with us. We are just about at the end of our time, Edie. I can't believe how quickly this half hour has passed, and I'm so glad you've been with us. I wonder if there's just a word or two that you would like to share to summarize your work with vibrational healing and the harp. What would you like to leave our listeners with as we say goodbye to you?
I guess it would be to try for themselves healing with sound. There's a wonderful book written by an oncologist by the name of Mitchell Gaynor, and it's called Sound Healing. And he talks about using your voice to heal yourself. You don't have to go out and get an instrument. You could start with using your voice. It's why we think that cats have 9 lives, because of their purrs and the vibrations that they send through their bodies. So do check it out.
Thank you so much. That's the book Sound Healing by Mitchell Gaynor. Well, Edie, I thank you so much for being on the show with us this morning and sharing your work with Bedside Harp with us. And I look forward to more connection with you in the future and keeping in touch with what you're doing.
Thank you.
So, Thank you. Listeners, it's time for us to take a short break, and when we come back, Olivia McNish-McMillan will be with us speaking about essential oil therapy.
Your favorite Voice America Talk Radio Network shows and hosts are in your car, outdoors, and wherever you need them to be. Listen anywhere. Get our mobile app for iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android at the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
Cathy Roberts offers Circle of Voices teleclasses to help you focus your mind, engage your energy, and awaken your inner guide. Through this experiential and interactive series, you will know yourself more and learn to express yourself authentically in your personal life. Visit Cathy's website at cathyroberts.net to find out about this teleclass series, designed to open you to change and engage healing in the fabric of your life. Go to cathyroberts.net or call Cathy at 301-651-0019 for more information. Cathy Roberts is not only an exceptional radio host, she's an exceptional listener and counselor. Cathy appeals to motivated, high-functioning people to help them improve their health and vitality. Cathy can meet you where you are and help you identify what you want. Visit Cathy's website at www.cathyroberts.net or call her at 301-651-0019. Cathy works with both individuals and couples and specializes in grief and depression counseling. Get to know yourself by working with Cathy. Visit cathyroberts.net or call 301-651-0019.
Your favorite Voice America Talk Radio Network shows and hosts are in your car, outdoors, and wherever you need them to be. Listen anywhere. Get our mobile app for iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android at the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
You are listening to Voices for Healing with your host, Cathy Roberts. If you have a question or comment for the program, please send an email to Cathy at cathyroberts.net. That's Cathy at cathyroberts.net. Now back to Voices for Healing.
Listeners, welcome back to Voices for Healing. My guest for the next half hour is Olivia McNish-McMillan, an essential oils therapist. Olivia, welcome.
Hi, Cathy. Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm glad you're here. Let me tell our listeners a little bit more about you before we get started. Olivia McNish-McMillan is a certified clinical aromatherapist and aromatherapy educator. She received her certifications from the AIA and NAHA approved scholars program at the Aroma Head Institute with internationally known Andrea Butcha. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's Boucher.
Boucher. Her specialties are working with energetic body imbalances, headache and migraines, and smoking cessation. She lives with her husband in Hyattsville, Maryland, with their 6 companion rescue animals and no room to turn over at night. I love your sense of humor around that, Olivia.
Well, anybody who has that many animals knows I'm telling you the God's honest truth.
Yes, I have 1 cat, and sometimes it feels that way to me, too. In the half hour ahead, Olivia will share with us some of the science of essential oils, how they work, and how we can use them in supporting our healing from loss. Olivia, I know you could talk about essential oils for hours. One of my favorite things is learning how my guests became interested in what they love. How did you get interested in essential oils therapy?
Well, I've always been a fan of aroma in general. Playing with different scents here and there, always stopping at the perfume counter. But my husband and I went on a weekend getaway about 4 years ago to St. Michael's, and there was a store there called Mind, Body, Spirit, and it's not even there anymore. But it was an aromatherapy shop. And I walked on in, and I'd been thinking about, what my passions are supposed to be. And I asked the woman at the counter, so what do you have that will help me figure out what my creative vision is supposed to be? So she handed me a jar of bath salts. And I said, okay, well, why does this work? And she said, well, because my grandmother said it would work, so go ahead and just use it. And I did. And, well, sure enough, it didn't do the trick because I suddenly just felt a passion for aromatherapy and essential oils, and I wanted to see what was in that particular blend in the salts that would help me find a vision. So I decided to go to school so that if anyone ever asked me a question about essential oils, I'd be able to answer it confidently and give them the facts behind why something would work.
Lovely story. And so many people just do things because somebody said it would work. And I love your passion to know the details behind it. Like, how did that work? Why did that work? So maybe you can explain to our listeners how essential oils do work. What's the science of essential oils?
Oh, boy. The part where I could talk. In fact, I do when I teach, talk for hours. Well, basically, let's just break it down to what an essential oil is. Essential oil is basically the volatile aromatic compounds that are retrieved from a plant. It is an oil, but it's not an oily oil. Essential oils actually will evaporate, which is great if you happen to get it on leather shoes. Ma'am, I am so sorry that I spilled it on you. Honestly, if you are listening, keep putting the powder on it. But it will come out of clothing and leather and shoes that way. Unlike oils like olive oil, which, if you spill that somewhere, good luck getting it out. They can be obtained through a bunch of different processes. Most of the ones that I use for therapeutic work are going to be distilled oils, also cold pressed, and a lovely technique called enfleurage.
What is enfleurage?
Well,
briefly,
basically macerating the plant material and soaking it in a carrier oil so that oil bonds to oil. So the natural oils that are released after the maceration process bind to the carrier oil, and then that is reduced so that you have a concentrated form of essential oil, an enfleuraged absolute.
Thank
but
you.
Without using a solvent.
Okay. And how are essential oils extracted from the plant materials?
Well, when you have distillation, you have this huge copper apparatus, at least in large plantation facilities where they grow all the plant material and they distill on site. It's these large copper stills, and the plant material is heated up, and that material is swept through a copper tube surrounded by another copper tube that pipes cold water through it so that you get the condensation moving through the tube, and it dumps into this large glass alembic where you have a whole bunch of floral water. It's called a hydrosol or a hydrolat, and it's got all the properties of the essential oils, but it's less concentrated, and the concentrated essential oil floats on the top. And it's a wonderful thing to see, but it's terrible to explain in a short period of time.
Well, what's so interesting is something that you sent me in the information about what you do and all, that it takes 60 whole roses to produce 1 drop of rose essential oil.
Absolutely.
And so I think that gives a sense of something about the process of creating the essential oils. So tell me, how do essential oils work?
Well, the two most therapeutic and basically effective ways to use essential oils are inhalation and absorption. Inhalation, it really is the fastest. And when I use absorption preparation for a client, it's more for a time release issue. When you go ahead and inhale an essential oil, the aromatic compound scent molecules in the aroma are actually received by your olfactory system, and that actually begins with a membrane at the back of your nose attached to a little bulb which is attached to nerves. Those nerves connect directly into the limbic center of your brain, and that plugs into your cerebral cortex. So we're talking instantaneous. Once the nervous system is involved, it's usually instantaneous. So after you smell, let's say, some of that rose oil that we just made out of 60 very expensive roses, your olfactory bulb at the back of your nose shoots all the chemical compounds that the rose oil is made up out of straight to your brain, and your brain translates that and produces a chemical response in return.
And then your brain responds to the calming of the rose oil or whatever particular characteristic. I know some essential oils are energizing and some are calming and some have different kind of effects.
Exactly. And rose oil is actually one that is great for grief.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
The other method that really works with essential oils is absorption. And when you're going to do that, you're going to use a carrier oil so that you dilute it so that it is safe for the skin and that you're not taking too much of a concentrated material into yourself. And as it slowly absorbs in the skin, it actually lasts longer. So whereas the effects of inhalation will slowly soon stop and taper off once you stop inhaling it, if it's on your skin, it's going to slowly release over time, and that is really great for like topical pain.
Can you use the two together? For example,
absolutely. And you're still smelling it once you apply it to your skin, so you are getting an added benefit.
I see. I just wondered if, for example, rose oil for grief, if you inhaled it first and then dilute and dab a bit on the bottom of your foot or something, if you get additional benefit.
Definitely, but I would dilute it and actually place it right over the heart. Right over the heart, and then you are still smelling it because it is placed right over your heart. And that is close enough to your nose to definitely get that dual impact.
Wonderful. There was another question that just went through my mind, and I didn't catch it.
It'll come back to you.
Oh, I know what it was. You mentioned carrier oils, and perhaps you could tell our listeners what some of the carrier oils that you use and other essential oils therapists use are.
Pretty much any regular skin-safe or culinary lipid will work. Some of my favorites are coconut oil. Coconut oil, I keep one container in my office just for skin preparations for clients, and then I keep another whole tub in the kitchen so that I can cook with it. You can use olive oil. You could use sunflower oil. Let's say you're having a rosacea problem, you would go ahead and use rosehip seed oil because that has a tendency to work really, really well and gently when it comes to healing skin, especially around the face.
Thank you for describing that. Some of our listeners might not know what a carrier oil is for essential oils. How are they used? You mentioned that we can inhale them or apply them, but what are the different methods for inhalation or topical use?
I could talk about that all day too, but some of my favorites are a vapor diffuser where it's electrical. You plug it in, you add some water, and then a few drops of essential oil, and it agitates the water and creates this vapor steam. And because there's no heat applied in the method, it really is the purest way to get essential oils through inhalation because they aren't broken down by heat. Heat will break down the effectiveness of an essential oil. You can also use an inhaler stick. They can be hard to describe, but they are about the size of a lipstick tube, and it comes in about 4 different parts. And on the inside, there's a little cotton swab. You drop some essential oils in that, and you assemble the inhaler, unscrew the cap, and then you can just sniff it anytime you want. It's perfectly pocket and purse travel sized. It's great. They even let them on planes. And then you have an oil burner, and that does break down the effectiveness of the essential oils just a little, but they're very, very pretty. And I love lighting one of those up just to scent the house.
Lovely. Before we move on to topical applications, Olivia, we're going to need to take another break. Olivia has much to offer us. Stay with us, listeners. You'll hear much more after our break. This is Cathy Roberts on Voices for Healing.
Looking for exciting video content live and on demand? Visit www.voiceamerica.tv for exclusive content you just can't find anywhere else. That's voiceamerica.tv. Tune in now.
Cathy Roberts is not only an exceptional radio host, she's an exceptional listener and counselor. Cathy appeals to motivated, high-functioning people to help them improve their health and vitality. Cathy can meet you where you are and help you identify what you want. Visit Cathy's website at www.cathyroberts.net or call her at 301-651-0019. Cathy works with both individuals and couples and specializes in grief and depression counseling. Get to know yourself by working with Cathy. Visit cathyroberts.net or call 301-651-0019. Cathy Roberts offers Circle of Voices teleclasses to help you focus your mind, engage your energy, and awaken your inner guide. Through this experiential and interactive series, you will know yourself more and learn to express yourself authentically in your personal life. Visit Cathy's website at cathyroberts.net to find out about this teleclass series, designed to open you to change and engage healing in the fabric of your life. Go to cathyroberts.net or call Cathy at 301-651-0019 for more information.
Find out what's happening on the Voice America Talk Radio Network by keeping up with us on Twitter. You can find us at Voice America TRN.
You are listening to Voices for Healing with your host, Cathy Roberts. If you have a question or comment for the program, please send an email to Cathy at cathyroberts.net. That's Cathy at cathyroberts.net. Now back to Voices for Healing.
Welcome back, listeners. I want to remind you that I love to hear from you about this radio program and your experience of it. You can connect with me at Cathy at cathyroberts.net. That's Cathy with a C. Before we move into our final discussion, I'd like for you, Olivia, to share with our listeners any upcoming events you might have and how listeners can reach you.
Great. Well, I am going to be at Karma Fest in June, but I do have some classes that will be coming up this summer, an aromatic tea blending class. This autumn, I'll have my 2 full weekend classes. One is therapeutic uses of essential oils. The other one is energetic uses of essential oils. And I can definitely be contacted by email. It's just Olivia at sacredelementsessentials.com.
Olivia at sacredelementsessentials.com.
Absolutely.
Right?
And if you email that, I can go ahead and put you on an emailing list, which would, I only do about 3 a month, but that would give you information on what classes are coming up.
That's good. And is something about Karma Fest on there too, so people can, Karma Fest is an event in Maryland, which our local listeners might be interested in. So you can Google Karma Fest and find Olivia there as well. So you had told us about the inhalation methods, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about the topical applications.
Well, the topical application, you're just going to take essential oils and dilute them. For the most healthy people, just a general good rule of thumb is an ounce of something, which is about 1/8 of a cup. You're going to use 10 drops of essential oils, and you just mix that up and apply it topically. I do a lot of that with pain. Someone has some kind of joint or muscle pain. I'll use essential oils for that. Mix it in usually arnica oil or arnica oil cut with a little sunflower oil because it's expensive. And then they just massage it into the area where they're injured, the pain is, and they usually feel some pretty quick relief.
So good. So your general rule of thumb is using 10 drops of the essential oil with 1 ounce of the carrier oil, which you mentioned earlier can be coconut oil or olive oil or any other kind of almond or other kinds of oils.
Right. For just general purposes, that's usually perfect.
Excellent. Are essential oils useful for healing both physical and emotional conditions?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the mind and the body and our emotional health are all interconnected. So when a physical ailment is present, sometimes there's an emotional component that goes with that, and essential oil will work for both.
Yes, I think that mind-body connection is evident and important, and both you and Edie have talked about it. Can you tell us how people might use essential oils to support healing grief and loss, Olivia?
Oh, well, there's a ton of different ways. I could sit here and give you about 1,000,001 recipes, but I can give a few stories too. One oil that is just really potent with that whole healing from grief and healing from loss process would be Fregonia. It is a
Olivia, can you
oil.
spell that please for us, Fregonia?
Sure. Fregonia, and it's an Australian essential oil. And I mean, there's some scientific data on it, but about how it helps with respiratory, etc. But how I've heard it used and how I have used it with great success is when you have somebody who is just almost to the point of seeming not very emotional or seeming on the numb side, but you know that there's something there. You can just tell that there's something that they're desperately trying to hold down, which is why they appear so less animated. They sniff on Fregonia for a few minutes, and I've had no less than 5 or 6 different clients and friends experience Fregonia this way. They burst into tears. I've done it myself. And they cry and cry and cry, and then they feel this peace, this feeling of, I'm okay. I can sort through this out. The pain's still there, but it's not so pressing, and they begin to come alive. You see their eyes light up.
So Fregonia can really help with releasing grief.
Absolutely. And if you're going to use Fregonia, or there's other oils for grief and loss like rose and cypress and melissa, which is also known as lemon balm, you want to spend time with the oils in a very low dilution, or just sniffing on them and using them every day to try and help through the process.
So is there a time when you might use Fregonia and a time when you use rose, cypress, or melissa instead? I guess you mentioned that, when the grief is right there and being tightly held. Is that what you were saying?
Right, when you're tight.
When there's numbness.
Exactly. That's a Fregonia type of response after that, when after you've had that process, or you're just very, very shaky, very upset, very fragile. That's when I like to use melissa. Melissa is great for shock and shocked emotions. Sniffing on that, putting that right over your heart. Cypress because it is a tree, it's wood. It's very supportive to basically fortitude, to bolstering you back up as your emotions are being battered around during the healing process. And rose itself is just when you just are hurting so badly and you just need some comfort and some relief to the grief. That's when I use rose.
Thank you for offering those differential times, the different times to use those different herbs. I think that can be helpful for people. How are essential oils helpful for people who might be living with depression?
Well, one trick I've learned with depression is the use of patchouli, especially if you apply it right to the bridge of the nose. It has been known to stop suicidal ideations. I do not have personal experience with that. I have personal experience, and meaning myself and with clients, when you're feeling depressed, the patchouli just helps lift you out of that mire a little bit. But I have read a few different case studies where the application of patchouli helps when someone's having suicidal thoughts. There's other essential oils that work for depression as well, where the depression is not that acute and deep. Of course, anytime you're facing any kind of acute condition, whether it be physical or mental or emotionally, you should see a qualified medical doctor about that issue, including a psychiatrist.
That's what I was thinking. If you find somebody who is having suicidal ideations, get some additional help for them as well. Stay with them or call 911 would be important things to do in that situation, as well as adding the essential oil. So what would you say are the 3 most important things for our listeners to take away from our conversation about essential oils?
Well, first thing is that essential oils are very potent, as per the example of 60 whole roses to get one tiny little drop. So they should be diluted before use, and consulting with a clinical or a therapist on usage, it's a smart idea as well. Also, that physical symptoms and emotional mental symptoms are often intertwined, and an oil that may work on a specific physical symptom or emotional symptom might just be the right oil for the corresponding alternate symptom.
Well, thank you, Olivia. We're drawing to a close very quickly here, and I appreciate your sharing with us on the show. Listeners, you know how to get in touch with Olivia for more information, and you have Edie's information as well. I want to thank you both for being guests on the show, and thank you, listeners, for listening. I'd love to hear from you. Next week, my guest is Dr. Eva Selhub, co-author of Your Brain on Nature. Eva will share with us research about the value of the natural world in healing ourselves and practices that we can use to tap into nature's healing powers. Until next time, transform loss, embrace vitality. You've been listening to Voices for Healing with Cathy Roberts.
Thank you for listening to Voices for Healing. Please join Cathy Roberts again next Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. We wish you the best recovery from your loss, and we'll talk again next week.